This is something that I've been wanting to do for a while now, as a way to interact more with all of you as my subscriber and follower counts continue to rise. The past few weeks have been a little rough, but I'm hoping to maintain a consistent schedule over the summer, including one of these Q&As every month or so. I've been putting this off for a little, but I finally got enough questions this time to justify a video. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the comments below, or message me on Instagram, or one of the other infinite ways to contact me through all of these social media accounts. The question can basically be about anything, whether it be Star Wars, this channel, other fandoms, or me. With that said, let's get into it. First, from Austin Frey 59 on Instagram, what are my opinions on future projects? This is a big question, and honestly I could probably make an entire video out of this. Overall, I would describe my thoughts as cautiously optimistic, which I feel would describe most fans right now. There have been so many interesting projects announced in the past few years, but it seems like Lucasfilm or Disney is rushing to announce these things as soon as possible, without waiting until production is confirmed. Things like Rangers of the New Republic, Rogue Squadron, Lando, and even a droid story were all announced years ago, and at this point I don't know if any of them will ever be made within the decade, which is disappointing, especially for something like the Lando series. Solo didn't do great at the box office, but Donald Glover as Lando was one of the best things about the movie, so I do hope we see that at some point. And no matter what time period it's set in, I feel like there's so much about that character that hasn't been explored yet. Just to group all of the games together, Star Wars Hunters, Star Wars Eclipse, Respawn's first-person shooter, Respawn's strategy game, Ubisoft's open-world game, the KOTOR remake, and Amy Hennig's game. For so many of these, we know so little that it's hard to get excited for them, especially when it seems like the only news we ever get is production difficulties and delays. The KOTOR remake continues to be pushed back, although I am excited to play that for the first time whenever it comes out. Star Wars Hunters was interesting when it was first announced, but it has yet to receive a worldwide launch, so I've basically given up on ever playing that. What we saw of Star Wars Eclipse looked very good, so I am looking forward to playing that, especially with the era it's set in, but it seems like it's still a few years out. And then the only other one that really interests me is the open world game from Ubisoft, even though I don't think we've heard anything about that since its announcement. In terms of movies, we know little about Taika Waititi's movie or Sean Levy's, but those are two of my favorite directors when it comes to movies, so I'll continue to look forward to those until we hear otherwise. The three that were announced at Star Wars Celebration, coming from Dave Filoni, James Mangold, and Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, of course I'm excited for all of these, especially since it seems like they're all set in stone and could be hitting theaters in the next 3 to 5 years. I think right now I'm most looking forward to Obaid-Chinoy's since it's set after The Rise of Skywalker, meaning we'll get to see some of the sequel characters again, like Rey, Poe, and Finn, but Mangold's is a close second for me, because of how early in the timeline it is, and how little we know about it. And then for the upcoming series, Ahsoka Skeleton Crew and/or Season 2, The Acolyte, The Bad Batch Season 3, and Tales of the Jedi Season 2. There's a question later on talking about the Ahsoka series, so I won't get too into detail here, but between it being the next series to premiere, and it following some of my favorite characters, this is easily my most anticipated series. Since it was announced, I think I've been higher on Skeleton Crew than most fans, simply because the concept of Stranger Things in space really interests me a lot. In the past few months, my excitement has dipped a little for it. Maybe because the leaked trailer from Celebration didn't give me a good first impression, or maybe because we know so little about it right now, despite it premiering this fall. Although I didn't love Andor as much as the general audience did, it was still the best overall crafted Star Wars live-action series, between the writing and the set design and everything. So as long as the writers' strike and Gilroy not being present for some of the shooting doesn't impact it too much, I think Season 2 will be just as good, if not better than the first season, especially since it'll tie it more into other characters and their stories. If you had talked to me about third season of The Bad Batch before this year, I probably would not have cared at all, but the second season did so much to make me finally feel invested in these characters and the story, and especially after the way Season 2 ended, and the otherwise lack of animated series on the horizon, I am definitely looking forward to The Bad Batch. The only other animated series coming soon is Tales of the Jedi Season 2. I really enjoyed what we got from Ahsoka and Dooku in the first season, but I don't think I can get too excited until they announce what the characters will be for the new season. I still want to make a video going over who I want to see, but my excitement level would be very different if they announced Plo Koon for the 3 episodes, compared to someone like Kit Fisto or Jack Costanew. And the last upcoming series to talk about, The Acolyte. Because it's set before the prequels, and has been described as having a darker tone to it, I've been excited for this one really ever since it was announced, with Ahsoka being the only other project that I'm looking forward to more. And even though none of the footage from Celebration was released publicly, between the leaks and footage description, I've heard nothing that has made me curb my excitement or optimism for the series. From account 563373 on Instagram, is Darth Bane still canon to the High Republic? Although his entire story from Legends is still not canon, Darth Bane has slowly been working his way into the new canon. He had a brief appearance during the Clone Wars Season 6, which officially brought the character's existence into canon, but for those that read the comics, you might be aware of another mention of the character. Issue 20 of their current Star Wars run included a meeting between Luke Skywalker and the Force Echo of Elzar Mann, one of the main Jedi from the time of the High Republic. During their conversation, Mann describes what the Order was like during his time, including a mention of it being about 8 centuries after they ended the rule of Sith Lord Darth Bane. So while that still doesn't make everything about the character canon, it's a lot more than what we got from the Clone Wars. It confirms at least that small part of the character's story, where he ruled his own Sith Empire a long time ago. And even though this is only a small mention of the character, this was the same way in which the High Republic was first brought into canon, with small details throughout various comics. So with the Acolyte on its way, as well as a few movies with unclear stories as of yet, the Old Republic may be on the horizon. From MaxSpam07 on Instagram, do I communicate with Lucasfilm or any of the Star Wars actors? I've met some notable names like Sam Witwer, Matthew Wood, and Anthony Carboni when I attended Star Wars Celebration a few years ago in Chicago, but nothing beyond the typical fan interaction. This channel and my Instagram page are far too small still for me to receive any special attention from them, but that is one of the many dreams. The only communication I have with any of them is the average response on Twitter or Instagram, but those still mean a lot to me. I remember once when the Clone Wars had just ended that James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan, responded to a tweet of mine and helped it blow up, so that was a fond moment. But yeah, I don't have any special lines of communication with them because I'm a Star Wars account. And lastly, from Fiole Tori Raizmianin, any Ahsoka series expectations? I'm trying to limit my expectations for now, but I really hope the series blows it out of the water. I've basically grown up with Ahsoka since she was introduced back in 2008, so she's always been a favorite character of mine. I have a lot of emotional attachment to not only her, but also all of these Rebels characters, which is easily my favorite Star Wars series. I enjoyed what we got from the teaser, but I'm hoping for some really gut-punching moments. Other than that, I'm just hoping for some solid action, sequences, and lightsaber fights, which we already kind of saw in the teaser, and a focused story, one that doesn't try to include too much. Having Filoni behind this could lead to him wanting to include a bunch of familiar characters and connect all of the dots together for the era, but I really hope the story remains focused on Ahsoka and Sabine searching for Ezra, and then Ezra and Thrawn and what they've been up to. The scope is going to grow as these Mandoverse stories continue to progress and start to tie into each other, but at least for the first season of Ahsoka, I'm really hoping it is an Ahsoka series. I'm also expecting this to probably end up being my favorite live-action Star Wars series. It already has so many things going for it, like my emotional attachment, and so far any reaction to the series that I've seen has been a positive one. I don't know where it came from or how reliable it was, but I do remember seeing some outlet or collaborator call it the best Star Wars live-action series yet. I want to keep my expectations in check so that I do enjoy this when it comes out in August, but so far everything I see just gets me more and more excited for it. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Remember to like the video, and subscribe for more of the latest Star Wars coverage, and remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you, always.